Hey there everybody, hope your day's going well. Your old school gaming here, and welcome back to another Wild Wednesday, the final one for 2025, oddly enough. Yeah, and it's been a long time coming. I've kind of glanced over this a number of times, mainly because of the length, 10.5 minutes on the original file, or original video. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, the Pokemon theory inside Pokeballs. I don't know, just like a bunch of technology? At least that would be my initial guess. Who knows? Maybe something from ProtoMario can kind of inspire more of a discussion than just it's technology. Maybe there's something a little more to it than just simply technology. I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. So, let's get into this video.
Hello and welcome back, YouTubers, to another episode of Pokemon Theories. I'm your host, ProtoMario, and this is the show where we discuss theories ranging from Red being a ghost to why the heck Jinx looks the way she does.
Now, this is the point where I have to mention that I did cut something out of the video, because normally I'll leave the video as is. I might cut off an overly long outro, but in this case, it's, someone that sponsored this specific video for ProtoMario. And hey, if you want to go and check out the original video with the sponsor and maybe check out the sponsor, that's up to you. I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not going to include it in my video because, hell, they're not sponsoring me. And honestly, I don't know if I don't know if I would like to promote them, just because I really don't see me using them, but yeah, and anyway, let's get on to the theory of, inside the Pokeballs.
On to the Pokemon theory. Today's theory is over Pokeballs. Specifically, how do Pokemon live inside of Pokeballs? This theory was asked by Shangahayando. I'm sorry if I butchered that.
Well, to be honest, I probably would have butchered that as well, and hell, I should have every comment, and sometimes some of the usernames are just, what in the ever-living hell? And I have to go, okay, you know what, I'm just going to call you this instead. Yeah, just because it's a little easier.
He asked what happens to Pokemon in Pokeballs. A simple question that I've always theorized about, so this technically isn't just asked by him, but also by myself. A Pokeball first must be identified, so that is a type of item that is critical to a trainer's success in storing and catching Pokemon. You can't just walk around with Pokemon outside their Pokeballs for the most part, though several Pokemon don't like being confined to Pokeballs, like Ash's Pikachu and Mewtwo.
Yeah, I was about to mention Ash's Pikachu, and hell, even the Pikachu you get as a starter in Yellow. And Mewtwo, yeah, I guess kind of. I mean, Giovanni never officially, put Mewtwo inside a Pokeball, just used him as a tool, and yeah, that's, who knows, that can be a potential discussion for another day, but in the meantime, let's get back into this. It is an item which trainers use to capture wild Pokemon and then train them up. So that's the identity of a Pokeball. And of course there are different variations. I mean, in first gen at least there was only the Pokeball, the Great Ball, the Ultra Ball, and a single Master Ball. Then in second gen introduced other ones, because my second gen journey at least, as of recording this right now, both Gold and Silver made it to Azalea Town and did the stuff there. Kurt gave a lure ball, and, Crystal's going to be exploring the town and actually talking to everyone. That's going to be a journey on its own. Well, who knows when. Maybe soon, maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, I'm about to start rambling about stuff that doesn't even have to do with this. So, yeah, like you said, a Pokeball helps trainers capture Pokemon, and then that way they can train them, of course with the few exceptions. But, still, Mewtwo was technically trained, and Ash's Pikachu is definitely trained. So, yeah, that's a Pokeball.
Of course, there are much larger Pokemon who may or may not enjoy being confined in a small Pokeball, but for the most part, most Pokemon stay in their Pokeballs. Pokeballs are a unique type of device used by trainers abroad. It doesn't matter what kind of trainer you are, but the most basic of Pokeballs is, of course, the regular Pokeball. It is red, white, and has a black stripe across it with a dot. It can go into a smaller size or the size of a baseball. So the smaller size would be about the size of a ping pong ball.
Yeah, you know, I never really took much time to think about, like, the difference in the sizes, but yeah, I mean, like, a baseball and a ping pong ball for the Pokeball itself, and how even other Pokeballs would follow that same rule, even if they have different designs on them.
The strength of a Pokeball is determined by how much a wild Pokemon's catch rate is, but more or less the regular Pokeball is the worst of the bunch, and the better one, or rather the best, would be the Master Ball with a 100% catch rate, and there are tons of balls in between.
I wonder, how many times are you gonna say balls in this video? I'm not gonna count, but yeah, so, well, okay, technically the Master Ball has a 99.99% chance. It does have that 0.01% chance to fail, which is so nominal, it might as well be 100%, but it is still there. It has been noted that, like, it is very rare, but a Master Ball can fail. And then, of course, you know, the Ultra Ball, the Great Ball, and of course you can increase, like, yeah, because wild Pokemon have a certain catchable rate. Basically, they, like if you just throw a Pokeball, it's like a 1 in so many chance they can be caught, which varies by Pokemon. And you can, of course, increase those odds in your favor by lowering the hit points and putting them to sleep and whatnot. God, this second gen catching montage. Well, the first one, I mean, Crystal had a few unique ones where it's just, oh, I need to catch this right here, right now. I don't have a time to screw around and, like, wait. It has to be now. But anyway, back to you, and, well, wherever you're going with this. It seems as though you're kind of rambling too, so I'll let you go for a bit.
The invention of Pokeballs apparently occurred in the Johto region where apricots grew, and there was a guy who made them named Kurt in Azalea Town, if you remember from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Then in the future, a little bit later on, corporate Japan, I almost said America, took over, and Silphco and the Devon Corp started developing Pokeballs. They were even working on the Master Ball when Red went through. And later on in games, as time progressed, it can be seen that the Silphco did actually develop the Master Ball, as you get a Master Ball for doing certain things.
Yes, and, you know, okay, a couple things, because, you know, at least Gold and Silver, I've met Kurt, I did finally get Crystal cut back up to the point where I need it, and it just needs to, take the routes, and then, yeah, then everyone needs to go through the Ruins of Alph, and then another catching montage, then a badge, then, yeah, move on from there. The grinding's gonna take a while. And anyway, more importantly, it does make sense that, you know, a company would come in and start mass-producing Pokeballs, mainly because there's, you know, because Pokemon are more than just creatures in the wild, at least in the world of Pokemon. They are a part of everyday life. I mean, how we see this in the very first episode, or no, not the first, but the second episode of the anime, where there's like a ton of Pikachu running around powering the Poke Center when it runs out of power. And really, that's just the first instance. I mean, hell, every single Nurse Joy has a Chansey, and there's so many more instances of Pokemon helping out. I'm not going to cover every single one. Damn, that would take a while. So having mass-produced Pokeballs, rather than just like Kurt and maybe any disciples who want to learn from him how to make Pokeballs, it actually makes a lot more sense to have like a manufacturing line to produce them in mass numbers, so that way trainers can actually use them. And of course, like with the regular Pokeballs being the cheapest, and then Great Balls increasing in price, Ultra Balls being the highest price, with Master Balls definitely, well, I wouldn't say they mass produce them. Maybe because of like whatever goes into making a Master Ball is so expensive, they can only produce like 2 a year at most. Because I do know in Gold and Silver, once reaching Goldenrod City, like you can listen to the radio and eventually listen for like a lottery, and then that lottery can eventually come to a point where it's just, hey, your number has been called, because like there's like a string of numbers that has to match the trainer ID. And so once the lottery numbers match trainer ID, go back there and get a free Master Ball, and also get one from Professor Elm after clearing all of Johto, and then that opens back up the Kanto region. So yeah, like I said, maybe just like whatever goes into making the Master Ball is so expensive they can only, or rather, maybe not just expensive, but also so rare and unique, they can only produce like a couple a year. And then, as for everything else, all the regular Pokeballs are the cheapest product that they can make a million of. But then the Ultra, or the Great Ball, they can only make like 10,000 of, then a year. Well, or maybe more. I mean, like in a batch, like make a million Pokeballs in one batch. Then the Great Balls make 1,000 or 10,000 in one batch, and then the Ultra Balls only make 100 per batch. And who's to say how big a batch is or what it takes to make a batch? So, yeah. And like I was saying right at the start of this rambling, Pokemon are a part of everyday life, so it makes sense to mass produce as many Pokeballs as possible. So that way, just like roaming through town, it's not like a bunch of giant wild creatures, not just animals, but there's plants and rocks and whatnot. So having them contained makes things a lot easier for the humans to move around.
So there is a trainer who claims that Pokeballs did not exist during his childhood, named Drayden, and he is a dragon trainer who's been alive for quite some time. But in the anime episode Sunken Ship, A Ship Full of Shivers, there are Pokeballs at the bottom of the ship, and it looks as if they were made over 300 years ago.
I think I remember that episode. It's like a hunter was like protecting the treasure? Or is it a completely different episode from another season that I haven't gotten to yet? Maybe, who knows, but that could be a plot hole, or that could be seen as other treasure hunters have already come down there and they dropped their Pokeballs. Like, actually, I don't have another answer to that. Maybe, yeah, that would be either it's a plot hole, or maybe other treasure divers have found the place but then dropped their Pokeballs for whatever reason. And hell, maybe their Pokemon were not in the Pokeballs. Maybe they could have just been loose Pokeballs that they accidentally dropped.
So now that we know about the basic premise of Pokeballs, let's talk about the different types of Pokeballs. As I stated already, there are Master Balls and Pokeballs, but there's also Great Balls and Ultra Balls. These 4 varieties of balls are no different from each other than the fact that they are easier to catch Pokemon, not necessarily heavy or big Pokemon. You see, back in the day, big and heavy Pokemon were not able to be captured very easily or well with Pokeballs, and they had to make custom Pokeballs. There's also custom Pokeballs for events like Safari Zone and Park Hunts. There are other balls specifically made for fishing and catching dark or Pokemon who are confined to caves.
Well, yeah. I mean, I kind of already went over that earlier. I guess this is what happens when you don't watch a video, of course. But yeah, you know, the and of course, like specific Pokeballs, I held well, at least Gold and Silver both have a lure ball, so that'll actually make fishing with the old rod a little easier to catch, because there are more than just Magikarp, at least in 2nd gen with the old rod, that can be fished out. But more to the point, yeah, there are, you know, the different varieties of ball help to increase the chance. But okay, so apparently I don't know. So would you say that like the first gen journeys with what red, blue, yellow, and green, that capturing big heavy Pokemon like take Onyx for instance, like that becomes easier because it's more than like maybe the initial Pokeballs couldn't capture a giant Onyx, but the more advanced, like it's still a Pokeball, just kind of upgraded, kind of like how certain games released on for electronic download, they do get updates occasionally, and it's still the same game, just certain things have been patched. So maybe the initial Pokeball couldn't capture a giant Onyx, but later iterations of the same exact Pokeball could. That's an interesting take on things.
But specifically, I'm targeting the Heavy Ball, as it is a Pokeball that is specifically crafted to create a suitable environment for heavy Pokemon so that they don't want to break out.
Hold on. A suitable environment? What are you talking about? Is there supposed to be like an environment inside the Pokeball? This could be interesting.
So this is how a Pokeball works. When you throw a Pokeball, if it is not deflected by the Pokemon being caught, it will turn that Pokemon into a residual red energy force inside the Pokeball, wherein then the Pokemon has an opportunity to break free from the Pokeball. Depending on how strong the Pokeball is or how well crafted it is to suit the Pokemon's environment, the Pokemon will choose to stay or escape, and that is the Pokemon's choice.
Interesting. So it's the Pokemon's choice. That's an interesting way to put it, because I suppose part of it is choice, and part of it maybe not. Because like I said earlier, you can increase the odds regardless of Pokeball. You can increase the odds by reducing hit points and putting it to sleep or paralyzing. Burning and poisoning can be a little iffy because that damage lingers after combat, but that is interesting. So you would say it's the Pokemon's choice. I'd say maybe not. Maybe. Well, hell, maybe like the Pokemon constantly breaking out of the damn Pokeball. It is more of like, hey, I don't know if you are worthy of capturing me yet. I'm still curious as to like what kind of environment that is inside the Pokeball.
Of course, if it is deflected, it will break the Pokeball, or sometimes return the Pokeball in the case of animes.
Yeah, Ash has absolutely no idea how lucky he is that he doesn't constantly run out of Pokeballs, have to run back to the Pokemart to get more, then go back out to the grass to find another one. Well, not just Ash, but anyone else in the anime as well.
Pokeballs are specifically constructed for Pokemon capture and transport and training, and only used to house Pokemon for trainers and pets. There are definitely different types of Pokeballs for different Pokemon. As I said before, Heavy Balls would be more suited for bigger, larger, heavier Pokemon. The Pokeball design itself is contoured for the shape of Pokemon to curl up and heal their wounds.
Okay, and another interesting point you made. I didn't realize, or I never really thought that the Pokeball's round shape would be like a way for the Pokemon to kind of curl up and just like kind of huddle in itself. That is, that's pretty neat.
Being more of an innovation that allows Pokemon to regenerate within them a lot easier.
Unless they're poisoned, of course.
Every Pokeball has been designed for comfort, and furthermore, while it's not known exactly how a captured Pokemon perceives their time inside the Pokeball, the device itself is stated to replicate a quote-unquote friendly environment that is designed for their comfort. In fact, there is an example of Iris's Dragonite inside a Pokeball in the anime that shows how it's sitting there. Now, in the manga, there's plenty of pictures showing tiny Pokemon inside the Pokeballs, and that they can technically see out of them even though they're inside them and stuff like that.
Huh, interesting. So would it be kind of like a like a Matrix type situation where it's like they get fed information that it kind of soothes them. Like maybe a water type Pokemon imagines it's swimming in the middle of the ocean. Maybe a fire type Pokemon just imagines it's resting next to a flowing river of magma or something. Then in what maybe a grass type Pokemon is just sitting in a field of flowers. I'm not sure what an electric Pokemon would see. Maybe like a bunch of pylons or something. I don't I don't know, but that is again interesting, because it's just like, okay, so they kind of get put into a semi-sleep state where they're just seeing what suits them the best. Interesting. And of course, like you mentioned, in the manga, there's no red top. It's like a clear plastic top, and people can see their Pokemon inside, and just in really tiny versions.
As made mention, the generic Pokeball design is not consistent and has been remodeled over time. There's definitely different types of, normal Pokeballs, and there also have been very unique Pokeballs created to capture very strange Pokemon, like the spoon and the weird cone thing, for capturing the giant Alakazam and Gengars.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, because how for instance, people can have their laptop in their bag, and then they might slap a sticker on the laptop to just say, "Hey, I enjoy whatever this sticker is," and maybe it's a Pikachu sticker. And so, people putting things on their Pokeballs, whether it's that diamond encrusted one, just to say, "Hey, I am super rich. I can afford to put all these high value diamonds inside of the or not inside, but just on the Pokeball itself, give it more value and show off my wealth." Yeah, and as for the other captures, it's things are kind of designed to say hey, go and search out this type of Pokemon, then you can capture it just by. Or you'll have a slightly higher chance, provided the certain conditions are met, like the lure ball for water Pokemon, or the heavy ball for heavy Pokemon, fastball, so on and so forth.
And of course, the dark device and the unearthly urn, which were adapted to capture massive Pokemon and evil Pokemon. There have also been unique Pokeballs designed by evil organizations like Team Rocket, and of course, the evil master Team Rocket trainer who had the Dark Balls before the Dark Balls were known as the Dark Balls.
Well, it does make sense. I mean, hell, if you were part of an evil organization, and there are certain custom Pokeballs that capture certain Pokemon, you want to monopolize on that as well, or at least try to cut in on the market, and create your own custom Pokeballs for your own desires.
And they turn Pokemon quote-unquote evil. But that's for another theory. Overall, my theory is that every time a Pokemon is captured inside a ball, they live in a fantasy, dream-like world where they have everything in the environment that they could possibly want.
Okay, so like I said earlier, just kind of plugged into the Matrix type of deal.
More or less, while Pokemon are inside their Pokeballs, they don't need to eat or use the bathroom. And they have no desires to battle or anything of that nature because they're designed for comfort.
I wonder if that could go into a potentially another theory, where it's maybe certain Pokemon want to stay in their Pokeballs because they get lost in a kind of solipsism, so to speak. They just do not want to leave. Period. And they're just when they come out, they're just, "Oh, fine, I'll battle, but I want to go back to the dream." Or hell, like for my instance, there have been times where a dream seemed so real that I woke up and went, "What in the ever-living hell?" But I only need about a full 2 seconds to realize, okay, that was a dream. That felt real. And maybe that's the way for most Pokemon. They just kind of wake up from that, the perfect dream, where they're surrounded by whatever they want, and for most of them, they just out of the Pokeball, wake up. Okay, here's what's real. Now I have to listen to my trainer and battle, and then I'll eventually go back to that. But hey, maybe they can, maybe like there's like a certain distinguishing of like dreams from reality, and then the theory would go into saying like, okay, maybe certain Pokemon don't want to leave their Pokeballs, just like certain Pokemon don't like to be inside Pokeballs. Maybe certain Pokemon that don't like to be in Pokeballs have like a certain level of consciousness where they reject the dream. I mean, hell, it was discussed in the Matrix how the very first iteration of the Matrix was an absolute paradise, but there was a 90% rejection rate. So they decided to make a one that's modeled after the world before AI, and then there was only a 10% rejection rate, and that was much more acceptable. And hell, maybe it's kind of the same thing for Pokemon. Maybe it's a 90% acceptance rate of being inside the Pokeball because they're well, maybe they have like a certain level of consciousness, but they still accept the dream, at least 90%. But then there's the 10% that just reject the dream and just, no, I would not want to be inside there.
I mean, there are even mentions of Pokemon trainers like Bugsy referring to his quote-unquote capture net as being, kind of like inside a Pokeball or something like that. I don't know. That's one of the weirder mentionings of how Pokeballs work, so I wouldn't go off of that. But more or less, there are even made mentions that in several examples, normal Pokeballs have had difficulty catching Pokemon with extremely large or heavy structures, like in the episode Claydol, Big and Tall, and Gulpin It Down. So, as more technologies go along, we discover ways to capture Pokemon a lot easier and better.
Well, yeah, that's why there's so many different varieties of Pokeballs. I mean, from the first gen to the second gen, at least, there seems to be quite a bit of variety. And hell, I barely scratched the surface of it going through second gen. But it definitely makes sense. It's just, hey, there are other Pokemon out there. We need to develop other ways to capture them, so that way we can study them and learn more. Because hell, it's human nature to be curious, even if curiosity killed the cat. But still, I mean, without curiosity, we wouldn't find certain things. We'd find out about certain things. I mean, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Yes, obviously it makes a sound. Just because no one was around to witness it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just sound dissipates over distance if you're far in... I mean, hell, if there are two people to hear that tree falling, but a third person so far away they don't hear the tree, does that third person have the argument, hey, that tree didn't make a sound when it fell, but the other two people say, yes, it did? Does that mean that the third person is right, or does that mean the first two people are right? And anyway... And more than just, like, different types of Pokeballs, but also upgrades of Pokeballs. I mean, hell, you showed Samuel's... from the Pokemon Forever movie, when Ash and... it was Samuel that traveled to the future with Celebi. And then Ash, Misty, and Brooke met him, not realizing it was young Professor Oak. But yeah, the Pokeball that he had the twist and then go Pokeball. So yeah, because that would have been like a standard Pokeball in Oak's time when he was 10 years old. So like as technology progresses and there are updates and maybe a few cosmetic updates as well. Eventually we get from what Samuel had to what we now know is just like a standard Pokeball. And it becomes like maybe that one had like a much lower catch rate, and then the modern Pokeball has a slightly better catch, maybe a much better catch rate in comparison.
So that's my theory, guys. Pokeballs are basically used to capture Pokemon and resemble an environment friendly. So if you capture a bug Pokemon in a netball, it would probably be better for them than a regular Pokeball. But again, as I stated before, there's not a Pokeball for every Pokemon's environment. Like there's not a Dragon Ball. But there is a Dusk Ball for Pokemon who like the dark and who like dark caves. There's a dive ball for Pokemon who like deep water, things of that nature. There's a park ball for Pokemon who enjoy the park and park catching contests. So that's my synopsis, guys. What's inside a Pokeball is just basically the environment that's most suited for the Pokemon. If you have a view on this theory or a theory you'd like me to discuss, please leave it in the comment section below so that I can address it, and I will give you a shout out for bringing up the theory. Thanks for watching, guys, and remember, happy gaming.
Okay, that's the end of ProtoMario's video, and it is a little interesting that like a netball would create a more suitable environment for a bug type. Maybe a lure ball creates a more suitable environment for a water Pokemon than a regular Pokeball. And hell, maybe for the lure ball versus the regular Pokeball, maybe the Pokeball kind of simulates, creates an ocean environment for that water type, but then the lure ball makes it a little more immersive, and that's why it's easier to catch water type Pokemon with it, because it's a little more immersive than just a regular Pokeball. That is interesting. Like I said, it really is interesting that, these kind of things can come to mind when just randomly talking about, and then going into, maybe it's a little more like this. Maybe that's why this happens and this happens. That is a very, very interesting theory, and honestly, I don't really find myself disagreeing too much. I don't know, like I said, maybe there's a 10% rejection rate of hey, I'm not getting inside the Pokeball, deal with it. Well, that was a fun one. I gotta get all the individual pieces together, then edit the whole thing together and do all that fun stuff. Yeah, and the Sword Art Online progressive movie with Asuna in the beginning. That should be interesting, and I look forward to watching that and giving that a review, especially since it's going to be very, very quick. Yeah. Anyway, that's something else. This theory, because I never thought that the circular design would let a Pokemon curl up on itself, kind of huddle in and just get comfortable. Because that's kind of how a lot of people sleep in their own beds. They just cover themselves with a blanket and huddle into themselves, and it creates a little comfort. Maybe something like that for Pokeballs. And then, creating, kind of giving them a dream environment where it's just, hey, this is what you would really like. Like I said, for grass types being in a field of flowers, for water types being in the middle of the ocean, for fire types, being next to a flowing river of magma, kind of thing, just kind of simulating, and then with being in a field of flowers, if you can imagine if you know what the sun feels like, then subconsciously you can kind of tell yourself that's what it would feel like, especially in a dream. Yeah. Like I said, it is an interesting discussion. Hell, who knows what's actually in there? Because hell, even Meowth wanders around outside of a Pokeball, and even the few times that things have been translated, none of the with Pokemon talking and subtitles, none of the Pokemon have ever talked, at least to my knowledge. None of the Pokemon have ever talked about what it's like inside of a Pokeball. So, who's to say what it really is? Maybe your theory is correct, or maybe it's something completely different. Or hell, maybe if I were to counter your theory that, it's kind of a perfect environment and they're a matrix simulation type thing, maybe it's more of just a consciousness pause. Time just completely stops. They have no concept of time when inside a Pokeball, or hell, even inside the PC. They just kind of get out and then wake up and, oh, hey, my eyes are open again, kind of thing. Maybe it's just complete nothingness, and there's no concept of anything for them. It's just like pausing the video, just pause and then come back and, oh, hey, it resumed right back where it was. Yeah, there's that. So, yeah, but like I said, I want to get on the Sword Art Online Progressive, well, since it's a movie, I'll make quite a few notes for it, and I can take my time. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, and like I said, maybe there can be like a theory at some point in the future regarding, like, maybe because of the 10% rejection rate from Pokeballs, maybe it's like a subconscious thing they completely reject, and hell, maybe even like 1 in a million Pokemon refuse to leave the Pokeball because of a type of solipsism where they just get lost in the dream. I think there have been a few cases where Pokemon refuse to come out. At least one I can think of where it's like the Diglett and Dugtrio wanted to stop a dam from being built, which would, like, building the dam would have destroyed the environment that they lived in. Yeah. So, well, that's a completely different case, but maybe that can kind of lead into, like, hey, maybe some Pokemon refuse to leave Pokeballs because of this. Yeah. Anyway, okay, this time I am actually gonna stop and edit this together and all that good stuff, and yeah, I hope to see you in another video, whether it's another Wild Wednesday, a Thoughtful Thursday, Morrowind's still going for at least a little while, and yeah, I will hope to see everyone there. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't hit that bell so you can always be notified whenever I upload another video, and as always, have fun.